He looked away from the flickering old videotapes and recalled his parents' early lives when they were so young and happy. He glanced back at the screen to notice it. Fear took hold of him and his face lost its color. In this ancient videotape, a mysterious man reaches out to his mother. He glimpsed the man's watch, a symbol of wealth and power, yet it was the forced smile that betrayed his insidious appearance. That proved to be true for 34-year-old Mark Welling. It was a tough day cleaning out my parents' house in San Francisco, California. As an only child, Mark loved his parents dearly and couldn't bring himself to go through their things after his father died. However, when he decided to sell the house, he could no longer evade the task. Mark remembers his childhood as full of happiness. His parents rarely argued with him and showed him kindness and unconditional love.
He considers himself lucky to have grown up in a loving family with parents he can always count on, and little does he know that not everything is as it seems.
Mark's mother disappeared when he was 9. With no leads for the police to pursue, the case is deadlocked and Mark lives with his grandparents while his father lives in isolation. Haunted by years of seeking relief as the sole heir to his parents' legacy, Mark finds himself weighed down by childhood memories haunting the house. Sorting through the relics became an unbearable task that prompted him to appoint someone else to look after the property over the years. Watching an old wedding video, Mark sees his young, love-struck parents and laughs. However, the atmosphere turns dark when an ominous figure appears in the background with a disconcerting smile. It had been many years since Mark had last set foot in the house, and his previous visits had been to sort out and store everything since his parents had left. He left that day in tears, and this is no different for all the wrong reasons. In the box of old videotapes, Mark stumbled upon an unlabeled curiosity that got the better of him and forced him to play and discover the contents. To his surprise, this is a video of his parents' wedding day. Why isn't this tape labeled? Why did he never know about it? Watching the joy of the wedding unfold, Mark recognized his long-lost uncles and aunts who all exuded youth and joy. Yet the camera continues to roll footage of another man who appears to be close to his parents and whose appearance has a vaguely familiar feel. Suddenly a wave of fear swept over Mark. Who was he? As the video went on, Mark noticed his mother getting more and more upset. She and one of his father's best footmen, the same odd man who was standing behind him, made strange eye contact, and his mother burst into tears at the altar with a cry of pain. His father intervenes and suddenly their wedding turns into a confrontation. The video suddenly cuts off and Mark is shocked, wonder what happened. I knew his parents well enough that such behavior was highly unusual for them, and he needed to solve the mystery, especially since they never mentioned it. After looking for clues that something like this will happen on the wedding day, Mark senses that this mysterious man is the center of tension. But we still don't know why. A chill ran down his spine as he grabbed another roll of duct tape. The birth video from October 1986. Mark was born and lay sweetly in his mother's arms, but it was the same man again who stood in the room with mom and dad, and this time they seemed to be one big happy family. What's going on? Are they friends? Why does it always seem wrong to him?
The next thing he sees rushes back to his memory in the video when he catches a glimpse of the man's watch as he reaches out to hug him.
This is a watch you will never forget. Expensive, looks sharp, a watch that symbolizes wealth and power. He watched as the man lifted him up and kissed him on the forehead and shuddered at his false appearance. Suddenly Mark realizes that hidden in his memory is a box full of forgotten experiences with this person. He paused the video to re-examine him as he looked at his clean suit and neat hair, and he looked really perfect. He behaved so politely and respectfully that no one could have guessed his true nature. For him it was his estranged Uncle Gerald, or at least, that's what his parents called him. He was a wealthy man who often came to his birthdays and other family gatherings, always with big presents and a smile of welcome. When Mark was a little boy, maybe around the age of 5, he stopped going to family events, and Mark didn't know why. What happened to him? Why did Mark look at him and feel so uneasy? Once Mark stopped visiting his mother, he always avoided talking about Uncle Gerald. He remembered once asking about him and hearing a gentle voice urging him to stop asking. Mark had always known he wasn't as kind and generous as he made out to be, and suddenly it dawned on him he knew where he'd seen that face before. Mark had recently seen a drawing of the man on TV while reruns of Unmasking crime drama. The man was a criminal operating in the San Francisco area with ties to robberies and gangs, and suddenly it all made sense, and Mark's heart stopped beating and his breathing became shallow. Judging by his mother's personality, Mark guessed that she must have found out what he had done on the wedding day. Couldn't contain his feelings even at the altar. Mark never knew where he was going, so he googled his name. He found out he'd been arrested a few years before he was born, but they couldn't hold him for long. Uncle Gerald, whose real name is James Kern, has been on the run since 1977 after escaping from a prison bus in North Carolina. He has been on the run from the police. The prisoner waited behind the bus until it stopped in the woods and then ran away, and eventually he started a new life and established a new identity. Uncle Gerald was sentenced to 6 years in prison for a bank robbery, and because he grew up surrounded by bad people, he couldn't resist the temptation to commit more and more serious crimes. He lived a good life until he was finally arrested and convicted by the police. Did this man have something to do with his mother's disappearance? Sweat ran down Mark's forehead. He slowly took out his phone and dialed 911, and Mark turned the tape over to the FBI even though he wasn't sure what it contained. A strange feeling came over whether the information would help solve the problem. Everything he thought he knew had been upended. His mother disappeared when he was 9, that's all. But now he had to confront an uneasy feeling. What if everything he knew was a lie? It was a tenuous connection at best, but Mark was determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. What if his parents were deeply involved in Uncle Gerald's criminal life? I was searching the internet late one night and found a reported sighting of a man who had been wanted by the FBI. Some of them date back to the 1970s when the FBI learned that the man had taken on a new identity before Mark took effect. Multiple aliases may have been used since then. Does this mean that Mark's mother might still be alive? Mark dared to imagine what it would be like to see her again until his heart hardened and a tear ran down her cheek. That means he left him, or was there a more sinister motive to her disappearance, and Uncle Gerald, who Mark knew, had something to do with it? Did he do something to hide? For what purpose? The only person who could possibly know the answer was Mark's father, and now he's gone. He's barely spoken to him since Mark moved in with his grandparents, and their relationship has slowly deteriorated. The James Cohen case and the disappearance of Mark's mother were reopened based on new information Mallet provided. The FBI uses new technology to properly age its identity sketches and issues alerts in every state where at least 1,894 women have gone missing in unexplained cases in the United States. While those cases are ongoing, they could be reopened as new evidence comes to light, and Mark's father Carl has only vaguely hinted at his son's disappearance. After all, Mark was only 9 years old when he was told that his mother, Sylvia, had packed up and moved in with his parents. The last time she saw anyone, she was happy and smiling and surrounded by friends, but now it's all meaningless. About eBay, people gathered at the local church to celebrate Mark's parents' milestone. Sylvia's cousin said, "When we wrapped and decorated the bottles before the party, Sylvia pretends to be an opera singer. It's his nature. He loves people and antics." However, other eyewitness reports tell a different story, and Sylvia's sister Janet told police what happened backstage that day. He revealed that several family members had heard the voice of Uncle Gerald and that Carl had repeatedly threatened to kill Sylvia. However, at Sylvia's request, the police were never informed. Janet explained that Carl had a drinking problem in the years leading up to her 6th birthday. His drinking was out of control. Mark couldn't remember his mother's birthday, and his parents got married at the local church and then threw a crazy party at their house. Mark and the other children went to bed early so the adults could drink and dance undisturbed. In the evening, Mark and his grandparents went home for the night. It wasn't unusual for him to live with his grandparents, but he couldn't help feeling that something wasn't right, and according to police records, Sylvia made an overseas call to her brother Matt that night. She got into a fight with Carl after the party and found Matt to pick her up. Yet by the time Matt arrived she had disappeared. Mum told me she was threatened, Matthew said. She said, if anything happens, promise me you'll take care of Mark, and I assured her, of course. Little did I know that I would never see her again, as investigators made no arrests or major breakthroughs in the case of Mystery Man and Mark's mother's disappearance. A police spokesman said in a press release that the puzzling reopening of the case has yet to be clarified. Police cannot speculate what happened to the woman, the press release read. Then another possible piece of evidence disappeared. 6 months after the new discovery, Mark put his parents' house on the market. It sold just a few weeks later for just under 14万美元, and it's unclear if the new owner is aware of the house's mysterious history, or if there are more revelations yet to be discovered. As time passes, Mark seems less and less likely to solve the mystery of his mother's disappearance.
Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe.